because nutrition is 80% of the story. That's just it. You may not like that, but it really is. You can't outrun, you can't outwork, you can't outdo any of a poor diet. All right, guys. So today I'm going to dive heavily into my 3 core aspects of what I truly believe that health is all about. Now, everybody is different. And I will say that so many people in the industry, they might tell you that there is this one way of getting healthier. There's this one way of doing things, but I think there's multiple ways. But, for me, I've practiced something for so long and I found that it just works for me. It works for the people I work with. And I just want to dive deeper into that and take what you can, apply it to what you will. And honestly, I hope that this can help you for what I'm actually about to tell you. Now, over the course of the last 20 years, I've been in fitness and nutrition and even psychology. And what I will tell you is that basically everything comes in waves, as in there's going to be the latest trends, there's going to be some fads, there's going to be what's hot, what's the latest hack, all these things. Now, when I started in the industry, it was very much about, not so much, it was like, what's the healthier option? That's like the very basic approach. What's the healthiest option that people can choose? There was not non-GMO. There was not this organic, non-organic. There was no keto, carnivore. There was none of that, right? What there was, here's an option and here's an option. Which one's better for you? It was pretty much that simple approach. Now, obviously, over the course of time, people have learned that there's foods out there that are actually more detrimental. There's, ways of eating that could be more beneficial for certain autoimmune diseases or whatever's going on. For me, it really comes down to just like 3 key concepts. One of them is going to be training. How do you train? Now, back when I started, everyone was doing, 4 to 5 exercises. The body splits was very much a thing, or compound. There wasn't really this high intensity interval training, and there wasn't this low intensity stuff. It was honestly, you either did bodybuilding or you did strength and conditioning. You basically did one or the other. It was isolation or compound. And then obviously over the course of time, science has set in. People are looking at different methods of training, different ways of doing things, whether it should be low intensity, high intensity, whatever. Regardless, as a whole, training is just one core pillar. When you are training, you are thinking of, how do I become more adaptable? In other words, if you're someone that is on your feet all the time, you're having to, shift and change a lot of things, you probably want to do some more high intensity training because you want to build adaptability. If you're someone that sits down all day, maybe you want to try and get somewhere where your heart rate is higher for a longer period of time. It really just depends on what you want. Is there one method? Not really. Is there better methods? Yes. And this is why I like strength and conditioning. I've also played soccer for, oh my gosh, what was it? Over 20 years I played, 7 years was professional. And in that, I always use strength and conditioning because it developed power, it developed speed, it developed strength, agility, coordination. So I use strength and conditioning. Now, if you want to know what that looks like or what that is, basically what it is that I will do power-based movements. I'll do strength-based movements. So I might do something that's developing power, like plyometrics, like jumping on a box and, increasing the height. Then I'll do a strength-based movement, which might be a back squat, right? Compound, still a bit more explosive. That's what basically I mean by strength and conditioning. Now, the conditioning is like short, sharp, interval-based stuff. So I might sprint for 50 meters, rest, and then I might sprint for 20 meters and then rest. So it's strength and conditioning. It's not one or the other. And I just found that it worked. It worked so well for my sport. It worked well for how I wanted to look and feel and how I wanted to perform. Strength and conditioning was also one of those things where there was so much science going into it. And now, obviously, depending on where you're at in your life, you might hear people be like, no, you need low intensity. And I truly don't believe that low intensity is the way to being adaptable. It's definitely not the way to really understanding how far you can push your body. So if you're looking to really develop resilience and adaptability, strength and conditioning is it for you. High intensity interval training. Do you have low intensity days? Yes. And the reason for that is because you want to have the low intensity days where you do less so that you can give your nervous system a break. That's what that's all about. Now, how many strength days do you want to do? 4 to 5 days a week. Do strength, okay? How many conditioning days do you want to do? 3 to 4 a week, right? How many rest days? 1 to 2. That's really kind of like what I feel is the best method out there that I do believe is sustainable, right? You can work out 5 days a week. If you really want to add that 6, you can. And as long as you understand how to listen to your nervous system, because if your nervous system gets too shot, that's where burnout happens. That's where overtraining. But I can tell you right now, from someone who has trained 40 to 50 hours a week, 40 to 50 hours, guys, right? Some people think they're overtraining because they're training 5 hours or 6 hours a week. That's, 5 to 6 days, and they were only doing 1 hour. Look at the difference. 5 to 6 hours versus 40 hours of training. I can tell you right now, you ain't burned out. You're literally listening to the wrong people. So from a training standpoint, just understanding that if your body responds really well, you're able to get to the gym, you're able to push yourself, go hard, do all those things, and you can do that in 4 to 5 sessions, do it like that, regardless of what someone else out there says. Now, you're probably someone that maybe struggles to see the results. Well, I can tell you right now, it's not about the training, it's about the nutrition. Because nutrition is 80% of the story. That's just it. You may not like that, but it really is. You can't outrun, you can't outwork, you can't outdo any of a poor diet. If your diet is not in the place where you want to get results, you're just not going to get results. It comes down to what you're putting into your mouth, and you have 100% control of what goes into your mouth. It's a matter of you actually taking control. So the nutrition side of things, look, I will tell you right now, it's so, so critical. And what I mean by nutrition is understanding how can you eat in a manner that is more sustainable and long lasting. What I mean by that is if you do a diet, and say you do keto, carnivore, whole 30 paleo, whatever's out there. Let's say you do it. Can you truly ask yourself this question? Will I sustain this for the rest of my life? The answer is probably no. Now, diets serve a purpose, but a pretty small one. Okay, you can start off on them just to do what they essentially are made to do. Any diet out there is essentially made to put you in a calorie deficit. It doesn't matter what diet it is. The reason why they work is because they're putting you in a calorie deficit. That's why they're working. It's not because you're only eating meat or you're only eating fats or you're only doing this. It's because essentially, if you follow anything, it puts you into a deficit. That's why they work. Eventually, they stop working because eventually you're going to want to reintroduce foods, and that's where the weight comes back on. That's why you get discouraged. So you can start off with them. You can start off with intermittent fasting. You can start off with carnivore, but I can tell you right now, they have to be short term. So if you are going to start off with one of those, it has to be maybe like, I'll do it for 30 days, I'll do it for 6 weeks, and then I'm going to cut it. I'm going to move to something else. You have to move forward. You cannot think that doing the same thing over and over again that was not designed to be lifelong, you can't expect results. They're not designed to be lifelong. All right, just understand that. And I get it. There's going to be these ancestral people that are going to be like, no, but they used to do it for the whole course of time. Yeah, people also died a lot younger. So we got to contemplate that too. So the way that I see the second pillar, which is nutrition, is I like macros. I think that macros are huge, macros and micros. Macros, carbs, fats, proteins. Micros is your vitamins and your minerals. So what you're going to do is you're going to go, how many carbs, fats, proteins do I need to eat in a day? These are according to your body composition. In other words, if you're carrying too much body fat, you don't need a lot of fat. If you're carrying a specific amount of muscle mass, you need to have enough protein to meet that. Okay, meet that as a bare minimum, plus add some if you're doing strength training. Carbohydrates is just to fuel your energy sources. And everyone needs carbs. Carbs turn to fat only if they're underused and you're not actually doing anything with them. So basically, if you're inactive, that's when carbs turn to fat. But guess what? Proteins can turn to fat, so can fat. So everything can turn to fat. The fourth macro is actually alcohol. So if you consume a lot of it, that's going to come first. And you're not going to probably want to do that because I can tell you right now, it's probably going to add. And it doesn't sound like anyone out there is wanting to add fat to their body. So the more that you can avoid and limit and honestly even cut it out, the better you're going to be long term. But again, it's going to come down to doing something over the course of time. I love hitting like the 90-10 rule, as in 90% of the time I'm eating clean, 90% of the time my clients are eating clean, 10% of the time they fall off track, they skip a meal, they eat out, something like that. And so it's sustainable. They're like, okay, I can stick with this. Sometimes some weeks are honestly 80-20. Some weeks are 70-30, but beyond 70-30, nah, you don't want that because you're not going to get results. And especially if you stack it and think about compounding. If you compound a bunch of weeks where you're 90-10, and then you compound a bunch of weeks which are 80-20, then you compound a mix of both, you're probably going to land somewhere pretty damn good, right? So don't look for perfection, look for progress in that. Now, the next thing is understanding what foods make this up. Now, if you go to any shelf out there, you go to any grocery store, everything is protein this, protein that, protein pancakes, protein waffles, protein chocolate, protein rice, protein whatever. There are more products that are out there that have the words protein before whatever the product is. Most of the time, it's just a marketing scheme. Like, be real with yourself. Honestly, it's mostly a marketing scheme. It's to try to get you to buy, because right now the biggest hype is how much protein can you have? I love just the simple sources of protein, right? Single ingredient foods, guys. Like, we're talking about meats, we're talking about eggs, we're talking about, you can do protein powders. I don't mind them as long as they're relatively clean, because sometimes we just need a little bit more, and that's where we can get it from. So protein is essential. You want to definitely get it, but if you can, single source foods, single ingredient foods, that's the best way to do it, rather than these packaging things that are honestly just a marketing scheme for you. So do that, because that's going to help you to stay on track. Now, carbohydrates, right? Again, single ingredient foods. Look for it through fruits, through vegetables. Get it from potatoes, from rice. Get it from these sources that your body can ingest, convert it to energy, utilize it, get ready to go again the next day, right? So carbohydrates, there's so many different things out there. There's even carb cycling. There's carb loading. There's carb deloading. Again, if you do it over the course of time, go back to the compounding, you will get results. You've just got to be consistent. If you're just a little over on carbs today, little over tomorrow, hit it the next day, then a little over again. Again, if you're a little over too long, you're going to gain. So this is, again, comes back to the concept that diets work because they keep you under. But eventually you want to reintroduce foods, and that's what actually brings you back over, so you gain the weight back. So this is why it's important to go, if I can track for a little bit, right? Maybe you only need to track your foods for a week just to kind of get an idea of what you're going over on. And then you make some adjustments. You're going to go, okay, this is how much protein, carbs, fats I'm going to hit every day. And you do this for a month, right? And you track your foods. You're very, very diligent on what you're choosing to eat. I'm telling you right now, you will get results. You will get results. Your body will start to change. Then over the course of time, you can slowly veer away from as much tracking and as much of that. Eventually you won't need to. You'll kind of like look at food and be like, oh, I know how much is in that, because I'm trained, I'm developed, I've practiced. Like, I know what 4 or 5 ounces of meat looks like. By now, you would hope I know, but I do know. If I see a cup of rice, I know that that's a cup of rice without even having to measure it. And the reason is just because I practice it. And the more you practice anything, the better you get at it. So you got to put in your reps here, okay? Just like you would have put in reps on the job that you have. You would have put in reps on whatever role you have in your life, and you would have become better at it. So if you put some reps in, you get better at it. Especially like what you're doing at the gym, you go and put reps and sets in, you get better at the movement. Same thing with nutrition. You track, you weigh, you get better at it. That's why it's such a critical component. But most of the time, people go aimlessly, blindly, guessing, and then they land nowhere. So I want to encourage you to really, really focus on being intentional, single ingredient foods, and hit your macros and hit them over the course of time. Okay. Compound it. The last part, which I truly believe is the most important part, is the mindset. Mindset is probably something that, it's a very interesting term, right? The whole idea of just mindset. What does that even mean? Well, it basically means your set of beliefs, your traits, your perspectives, your decisions, your things like that have basically formulated how you view things. So if you have a perspective on something and your mindset towards that thing is positive, then you have a positive mindset. If you have a perspective of something and the way you see it is negative, then you have a negative mindset about it. So this is what happens. Information comes into our brain, whether it is that we see it, we experience it, we hear it, whatever. And then at the back of our mind, we're basically going to organize that information. And the way that we're going to organize it is into positive or negative. If it's positive, then it's going to be stored as positive. And these are based on your experiences. Like, we're talking way back. So if you had a positive encounter with food when you were younger, and then you see all this food stuff out there, you're gonna take the information and you're gonna have a positive perspective. But if you had a negative with food, maybe when you were younger, and maybe a specific experience that really made you negative, you're gonna have a negative mindset towards it, because all the information is gonna trigger the negative side. So this is what I mean by mindset. So then you have to go, okay, if I was to dissociate from all of the previous, right, like the experiences, all that stuff, what would be like the facts versus the feelings, right? We look at things from a holistic standpoint. What are the actual information, data points and metrics and everything like that that's true? So the reason why I share that is because so many people think, yeah, I've got a good mindset, I've got to change my mindset. And it's like, what do you need to change about your mindset? Because that's a pretty damn broad concept. If you want to change your mindset, you have to change your perspective. And if you want to change your perspective, you're going to have to grab information and tweak it, reframe it, so that you have a different idea of it and then your behavior will match it, which is a cool concept to think about, right? So let's say that you wake up and you don't feel great and you don't want to go to the gym. What is that mindset? That's a negative mindset, because maybe in the past you've woken up feeling like crap and you haven't gone to the gym, and later on in the day maybe you felt better. So you kind of are formulating all of this information to then make the decision. But what about if you wanted to develop more discipline? So you wake up and you're like, I don't want to go to the gym, but you go anyway. And then you leave the gym and you feel really good and you're like, okay, I've got that information. And you're like, I actually feel like I was a little more disciplined. And then you feel a bit more proud of yourself. You feel better about yourself because you went and did something that you didn't want to do. Same thing with nutrition. I don't want to eat the healthy meal, but I'm going to do it anyway. I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm going to do it anyway. I don't want to go to sleep at that time, but I'm going to do it anyway. I don't want to turn my phone off because I'm like enjoying whatever I'm screen sucking on, but you do it anyway. The reason why you do this is because you're developing discipline. Discipline is something that many people don't have, and they lack it because of temptation. Because we all kind of hit these desires that are out there, right? Like we all hit that. But I can tell you right now that the more that you overcome that, the better you're going to be in the long run. So from a mindset perspective, we just need to reframe your perspective. And a lot of that is going, if I was to zoom out and step away, what would I be really seeing here? Like if I was to zoom the camera out, right? And look at the long view, look at the wide lens, you'd probably see more information and then have a better judgment on that information. So the reason why I share that is because many people don't realize that nutrition and training is all just about having a really strong perspective, an idea of who it is that you're trying to be and what it is that you're trying to become, right? If you want to become a disciplined person, it's going to be about saying no when you want to say yes, saying yes when you want to say no, like things like that, but having balance between both and having a mindset that has a perspective of, if I do this thing, I know that later on in 90 days, 100 days, 2 years, I'm going to change because I've experienced a good amount of this at this point. I've formulated how this is going to go, and I'm going to understand that my decisions are truly going to be coming from the idea that if I can look at what's happening right now, I can change it by making a better choice and a better decision today. So when you're trying to frame your perspective on things, you've got to look at more information than just how you feel. There's got to be facts in there. There's got to be truth in there. The truth will set you free, right? I'm sure you've heard it. I'm sure many people have heard it. The way that I think that mindset can be developed, right? And the best thing you can do is self-discovery. The hardest thing for many people to learn about is themselves, because they're going to see a lot of things that they don't like. But the more that you learn about yourself and you maybe discover the things you don't like, guess what? You get the opportunity to change those, which is quite powerful, right? So now what you can do is you can change your habits. Let's say you have a habit of staying up late because your screen is sucking. Maybe at that point, you're going to go, I'm going to stop doing that and I'm going to do a different habit instead. Instead of doing that, I'm going to do this. And, I'm going to start to learn about myself. I'm going to maybe start meditating. I'm going to start journaling. I'm going to start talking to someone. If you do talk therapy, if you do a different type of therapy, whatever it is. But basically, you're going to learn about yourself. Do something to learn about yourself. The other thing is do something to learn about the world. The world can teach you a lot if you're open to learning. If you're a fixed mindset person and your way's the highway, you won't learn anything. If you're a growth mindset and you want to kind of open your eyes up, your ears up, you want to see what's out there, you're a growth mindset, you have a much higher chance of more success and achievement because you're willing to take what's out there and maybe look at inward and go, where can I apply some of these things that are out there? Because there's a lot of great information. We are not at a lack of information, especially now. We have access to basically anything we want whenever we want. So there is absolutely no excuse for that. So you've got to go on a path of self-discovery. That's what's going to change your mindset. Learning how to create better habits, learning how to create routines, some structure, doing all this and then doing it on a regular basis. I have the same morning routine and the same night routine every day. It might shift a little bit depending on if I'm somewhere else, but for the most part, it's still the same routine. And I stick to that routine because it creates predictability and accuracy. So if I have those two things, I know that, if something kind of goes wrong, I can fall back and go, but I still did that and I still feel good about that. And then I can implement it day after day, after week, after week, after month, after year. And I've been doing this for so long that I can assure you that it pays off. The whole hard work pays off. It does. But the hard work isn't this crazy, grueling, grinding concept that's out there. The hard work is you making these tiny decisions, taking these tiny actions daily, and then backing yourself on the next move, on the next move, on the next move, and making yourself the best version of yourself. That's truly what this is about. I think there's many people out there that aren't living to their authentic best self. And if you want that, you've got to start going, what do I need to do physically to change? What do I need to do mentally to change? What do I need to do emotionally and spiritually to change, to become who I am and who I can be, who can offer more in this world and who can do more and make an impact, whether it's on my family, on myself, on others, whatever. If that's you, then you've got to start changing you. Because most of the time, when you're staring at yourself in the mirror, if you don't like what you see, and I'm not talking just about the physical appearance, if you do not like what you see beyond the physical appearance, you have the opportunity to flip the switch just like that. Any moment you decide, any moment that you decide. But a lot of the time, change is scary. Change is scary because it's unpredictable, it's uncertain, and you don't know where you're going to land, right? I got on a plane to move my life from Australia to the US, and I had no idea what I was in for, but I did it anyway. I did it anyway. Everything told me not to come, and I would not go back and change it for the world. I absolutely love the journey and the process, no matter how hard it was, no matter how hard it hurt. I love every aspect of it. And I wouldn't change a thing. I wish I knew more. That's the only thing. I wish I knew more then, but I know it now. But I only know it now because of what I went through. And now, whenever I work with people, I get them to understand that the journey is teaching them the most, right? It's not about the peak. It's not about the peak at the top of the mountain. Because once you get to the top of the mountain, you're going to look for the next mountain to climb. It's going to be higher, it's going to be harder, and it's going to offer more. But on this current journey, especially if you want to take it, if you want to grow with it and you want to actually change yourself, then focus on this day by day, step by step concept. That's where you are. So be where your feet are. Be present, right? And work hard. Truly work hard on yourself. I think many people out there will tell you this, but I'm straight up with you. There's a lot of people out there that will bullshit you. They'll tell you all of the fancy fantasy type of shit. And I'm not going to be about that. I'm going to tell you what's real. It gets hard. But I tell you right now, the struggle that you go through builds the strength that you're looking for. Only if you actually go through the struggle. And you're okay with going through the struggle. It's just part of it. You put the right people in your corner, and they'll lift you up when you're feeling down. You put the right people in your space to support you, and they'll support you when you need it the most. But I can tell you right now, you got to be your own cheerleader. When you do good, celebrate yourself. When you're struggling and you're down, reach out to those who you know that you can rely on to make you better. I know that every single client that reaches out to me when they're having a hard day, hard moment, hard whatever, I'll be there for them. I don't need to be their cheerleader. That's not the role. That's not my role. That's a cheerleader's role. And I know that they can do that themselves. So take action. Make a move, right? You know that I say this at the end of every single episode. And the reason why I say this is because I truly believe that that's where it is. That's what it takes. Because everything you want is on the other side of fear. So I'll say it again. Take action. Make a move. Because you're one decision away from a completely different life.